Welcome back. In our first story, the government of Ghana has announced the immediate closure of its embassy in Tehran as tensions between Iran and Israel escalate. This decision was made in the interest of safeguarding Ghanaian lives, according to the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Samuel Okudzeto, who disclosed the development in a post on social media today. That's 16th of June. And joining me right now is my colleague, head of the Foreign Affairs Desk, Blessed Soga, giving us details of that update on X. Blessed, what more has the minister been posting about?
Well, Mami, as you can just see there, a very surprising announcement that many were not on the lookout actually going into the day. But it has been confirmed now from the minister that Ghana has taken the decision to close down consulate or any diplomatic missions we may have in Tehran. If you're quite conversant with what's been happening, of course, in the Middle East now, it's been raining missiles, obviously because of the escalation between Israel and Iran, a reason for which the minister might be taking this decision. But what's surprising to many and those who are watching the developments closely is that the minister appears to be a bit more silent on what might be happening entirely within Israel itself. Now, if you're doing a comparative analysis of what's happening clearly in terms of the numbers, the figures, and likely the number of Ghanaians that we may have in Israel will be quite a substantial number. So many are just surprised as to why the minister is much more heavier on giving out information on what might happen to persons within Tehran. But obviously, it might also be driven by intelligence, the fact that if you're looking at the military capabilities of these two countries, then, of course, if you're making that analysis, you can then draw that conclusion that indeed Israel has quite an upper hand in terms of the military capability. So the casualties may be bigger in Tehran as compared to Israel, possibly a reason why we're seeing what we're seeing from the minister. We've made attempts to reach out to him this morning, at least to get some, updates on possibly what the next steps might be. No confirmation yet from the ministry as to what the next steps will be. But as we're taking it from him now, in terms of the statement from the minister, it is clear that all Ghanaians will be moving out of Tehran and they would not be using air travel. Clearly, that's what we're getting from that statement, because the indication from the minister is that the attempt is to use our land borders. And so if that's what we're going to be using, possibly, closer countries might be our next targets, such as maybe Iraq and the others, Pakistan, and some of the areas that we may have assets in, or perhaps close allies in, that we may want to move all of our interests and persons who are domiciled in Tehran right now out of Iran. So that's the approach that the minister is giving us a sense of. But for those who are not necessarily aware of what's been happening over the last few days, there is a clear indication that there's escalation of tension between Israel and Tehran, obviously based on what we're hearing. Israel says Tehran's decision to build a nuclear ammunition or capacity is a direct threat to their national security, a reason for which, of course, there's been strikes and counter-strikes from both parties. In the last few days as well, Israel has attempted to use the diplomatic forum to try and get the International Atomic Agency to try and, push more sanctions and to condemn the activities of Tehran. They've not been too successful at that, owing to the division at the Security Council level. But what we do also know is that even in Ghana, our relations with our, counterparts, the Israelis, appear to have been witnessing some setbacks, because publicly we're getting to see for the very first time, a diplomat, the U.S. ambassador, expressing his disappointment with Ghana for taking a different position when it matters most, or when it mattered most to Israel. So that's, quite about the first time in a very long while that we're seeing this outburst about how Israel wants to gather more of its allies across the world and to send that message to Tehran that they need to de-escalate now in terms of their, atomic capabilities.
Right.
But we still are waiting to see what it is that the minister will say beyond the statement that we're getting online.
Thank you so much, Blessed, for that update. Well, let's discuss this further. And joining me is international relations analyst Nanaya Miru on Zoom. We're grateful for your time on our desk. Well, Nanaya, this is what is coming up from the Foreign Affairs Ministry just this morning. What do you make of the recent development in Iran, in Israel?
Good morning to you, and good morning to your viewers. It's rather unfortunate that events are taking the turns that they are taking. And I think that it's in the interest of all other nations, who have their embassies in Tehran and even in Israel, to start thinking of how they are going to protect and safeguard, their citizens in these respective countries. So I think that it's a step in the right direction that if you have Ghana's foreign ministry deciding to close its embassy down in Tehran, and then look at how to get in touch with its citizens and probably get them to other safe states or probably bring them back to Ghana. I think it's a step in the right direction because it doesn't look like what is happening between Israel and Iran is going to end anytime soon. That was the calculation of Israel and probably US, that attacking Iran was one of the ways of getting them to the negotiation table. They were set to meet this very Sunday in Oman. And I think in the calculation, the calculus of US and Israel, by stepping up this kind of escalation, it was going to force Iran on its knees and bring them to the negotiation table. But it looks as if it's a blowback. And the escalation is going to take days, weeks, if not months. So it's only right that we start doing what we have to do before situation gets to the matter of deterioration. So I think it's a step in the right direction. It's a timely intervention, and I think that, like I said, it's a step in the right direction.
But what's also interesting is the mode of transport of evacuation of Ghanaian citizens in Israel, going by land borders instead of by air. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it just speaks to how difficult it is to navigate those areas, and the insecurity, right, in that area, and how the skies are even becoming volatile, because what is happening, Israel's airspace is probably one of the most volatile right now as we speak. The closest protection Israel is enjoying right now is Jordan. What Jordan is doing is that Jordan is closing up its airspace, so Iran is unable to penetrate it with missiles. But the point is that these areas are very, very volatile. Missiles are flying in left and right, missiles, drones, and so it's only right that you try to find a very safe and secure avenue, transport systems, to get your citizens out than to try to use the airspace. So I think this is it's a security move. It's a security guided, activity that the government wants to take. I think it's in the interest of our people that we use the transport systems through the roads than to use the skies. As I said, it's a very insecure moment, and any attempt to use the airspace could have catastrophic effects.
Well, how does this move signal the realignment of Ghana's diplomatic relations in the Middle East, especially with regard to Israel? I mean, recently they've made some pronouncements on Ghana's posture or stance with regard to their relations with Iran. What do you make of what's happened recently, just opposing that to the relations we have with Israel?
Well, I think that by and large, we need to understand the geopolitics of the day. It's just like the Ukraine, the Russo-Ukraine war. Somebody would think that it's a war between Russia and Ukraine, but ultimately, if you look at the bigger picture, there are experts that are saying that it's a war between the United States and Russia. If you look at what is happening right now between US and Iran, you would understand that ultimately, right, Donald Trump's administration is making every effort to dissociate itself from the direct attack. But all indication points to the fact that the actions were okayed or was sanctioned or was given the confirmation or affirmation by President Donald Trump. And so what it means is that any country that does not support Israel is likely to receive a backlash from the United States. And so if you see this back and forth between the U.S. Government and Ghana, and it's Ghana's position on some of these interests or some of these issues, then you understand why they are not very happy. And then more so between Israel and Ghana. But the idea is that if Ghana takes a different position, Ghana is a sovereign state, right? Like you said, during the Cold War, and Nkrumah said, we neither look to the east or to the west, we look forward. So we are trying to disentangle ourselves, but rather be guided by our national interest and what's inured to the benefits of the country. And so if the foreign minister weighs the options and he thinks that we need to take a different position, this is Ghana's national interest. We only have to play it in such a way that we are not seen as being biased in a certain instance, but that does not also mean that we cannot take our own position, because we are a sovereign state. What is for our benefit is what we do as a country. But like I'm saying, we either look not to the east or to the west, but we are doing things that inure to the interest of our national interest.
So right, I mean, on that, to expatiate more, how then do we coordinate foreign policy? Because does it mean we sever ties directly with Israel, outright, or what?
No, I don't think you have to sever ties with Israel outright, because you have taken an entrenched position. That conflicts with the interest of Israel. I think that there are a number of levels that we can cooperate, and everything boils down to dialogue. Israel would want to garner as many allies that it can, because this is also a diplomatic war. It's a diplomatic war between the two countries, and Iran is by and large isolated to a very large extent, because Hamas is not in its very strong position, Hezbollah, and then the Houthis in Yemen. So the idea is that Israel would be very happy, right, to isolate Iran within the diplomatic community, so that Iran is a standalone state.
Right.
And so countries that are gravitating towards Iran are automatically not going to be in the good books of Israel, because what it means is that Iran will have some attention of a sort, some sympathy of a sort.
Right.
But back to your question, I don't think that severes, that means that we have to sever relations with Israel, because there are a number of diplomatic relations or diplomatic endeavor that Ghana also has with Israel. Everything boils down to dialogue. How do we explain? How do we make it known that we cooperate with you on these other levels? But as far as this issue is concerned, this is our position. It doesn't mean that we are securing ties with Israel or with the United States.
All right, and now we're grateful.
It's a very interesting.
It is.
Very, very interesting. You don't want to be seen. The moment you talk to one side of the coin, you'll be seen as being biased and having a soft spot. If you do the same.
So do you support Ghana's position of abstaining from voting in support of Israel?
Look. Let me tell you this. Do you know one of the reasons why in the latter days of the Obama administration, the U.S. government fell out with the U.S.? I mean, the U.S. government fell out with Benjamin Netanyahu. Because for the first time in a very long time, the United States abstained. And we know that there are some scholars who are saying that Israel is not important. It's not just important in U.S. foreign policy. Israel is U.S. foreign policy. There's what you call the Israel lobby, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. We call them the Israel lobby. They push strings. If you want to become a president in U.S., if you want to have a successful presidency, and you don't control to the demands of this Israel lobby, you're not going to have a very interesting, tenure.
All right.
But Obama was aware of this, and he stayed away and let, resolution that was against the interest of Israel, to be put forward. So if U.S. has done it, it's not any different for Ghana to also abstain from these things. It's our national interest. We think this is what inures to our benefits. And I think that Ghana is right to have done, what it did. There's no point in entangling ourselves in this geopolitics and having the direct consequences. Staying away is one of the safest things that you can do, as a state. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time here on Newsdesk. We're grateful for your time. Miru is an international relations analyst, telling us, giving us more insight into Ghana's relationship with Israel and the happenings in Israel and Iran war. Well, we'll get more updates on this as and when, and we'll come back to it later on. But now, the bodies of 7 students who drowned while attempting to cross a river at Dikpe in the Upper West region have been released to their grieving families for burial. The students, all members of the school's cadet corps, were on their routine morning, jogging exercise when they decided to cross the river in a canoe. But midway through the journey, disaster struck and the canoe capsized, plunging them into the water. While 3 managed to swim to safety, the remaining 7 were swept away by the strong currents. After an intense search, all bodies were recovered and rescue operations have since been called off. Here's a report by our regional correspondent, Rafiq Salam.
Retrieving a dead bodies, 7 students drowned and all retrieved by local divers. Whether they are in same class, from different communities or teenagers, the loss is profound. At the forecourt of the Lora Municipal Hospital's morgue, sea of mourners gathered, majority of them in uncontrollable bearded tear eyes, grieving and wailing over the loss. Some of them are demanding for answers. One of the dead is a second-year general art student of the school, Lois Kati. Lois is described by family members and teachers as brilliant, calm, and respectful. His uncle and teacher, Augustine Liabo, is yet to come to terms with what transpired and want answers from authorities.
Lois Kati is my niece, and the mother passed on 5 years ago, and she has been under my care throughout the period. Unfortunately, yesterday I was called on phone that there was this tragic issue in the school. I arrived to realize that it wasn't in the school, but rather at the riverside. Whatever the issues are, how they got to the riverside is something that I can still not ascertain. And I need answers to these issues, because the students have been sent to the school to be taught. How they got to the riverside is something that leaves much to be desired, and I think the authorities that are in charge, I will expect answers from them.
Others want the identified bodies to be quickly released to them for burial. Our Power Regional Minister, Charles Wongo Pozon Esquire, has other ideas.
Unfortunately, it's a tragic day. We're not supposed to meet today on a Sunday to be discussing the passing of our children. All I can say is that it's the Almighty God that gives and He takes. Let's have deep hearts, further plead with the family that please allow the authorities a bit of time to go through the necessary procedures, and ultimately our kids will be released for us to do a befitting funeral.
16 members of the school's cadet went on their routine weekend jogging. 10 of them decided to go for a boat ride at the Dikpe River, one of the tributaries of the Black Volta, according to Primus Baru, who took over as headmaster exactly a week ago.
According to my cadet organizer and the patron, they wanted to also explore. And in the course of the event, in fact, before they set off, according to their leader, before they set off, the water started entering the boat. Actually, they have overloaded the boat. I understand those boats, they take about 6 people at a go. But 10 of them boarded, including the one who was paddling the canoe, making 11. So even from the set off, the water was... So the cadet, the leader at that time, indicated that they should stop the journey. But the one who was paddling the canoe carried on. I think by the time they got midstream, that was the time the situation overcame them. So in an attempt to turn back, the water entered and the boat capsized.
Briefing members of the Upper West Regional Security Council, led by its chairman, Charles Wongo Pozon Esquire, Primus Baru says they have duly informed all parents of the victims identified. Lawyer Charles Wongo Esquire described the incident as unfortunate, pledging that they will put in measures to prevent future disasters.
It's unfortunate that we've lost vibrant, young and upcoming persons. And from your report, we've lost 5 young girls and 2 young men. It is our prayer that the families will accept it, the school will accept it, and then all of us will accept the situation, whilst government looks further in terms of what we would do on the water, which is something that we know often than not people like take adventure or intend to cross to the other side.
The Apples Rexec members later visited the Laura Senior High School to console the staff and students over the loss of their colleagues. Some students shared memories about their departed colleagues.
Some of them, they are my friends.
So how do you feel losing them?
I feel so sad with them. We were people that we always play with. We are only learning mates, but now if it's we can't find none of them.
The Rexec members earlier called on the paramount chief of Laura to brief him on the issue.
Behind me is the mortuary for the Laura Hospital, where we are told that the 7 bodies that were retrieved have now been kept. We are told that investigations are ongoing, and then once they are able to finish with the investigation, they will release the bodies to the families. The situation in Laura is not that of the best. The people are in somber mood. They are grieving over the lost. Reporting for Joy News, Rafik Salam, Laura.
Just the lack of life jackets for canoe rides. Osman Abdul Latif Sensio is the regional director.
NADMO has always provided life jackets at all river villages that are across, that are around rivers. And this time we're very surprised that these life jackets that we provided over the years were not found. And so when this thing happened, we have come into our offices, and then that we are providing them with enough life jackets that everybody or anybody that is crossing the river will have to wear a life jacket before he can cross or before she can cross. This one is to prevent people drowning, those who are even not able to swim across when maybe an accident is to occur. These life jackets will provide it. What we have realized is that many of these villagers take these life jackets as their personal use when they are provided. That's why that's what we have gotten to know from the chief or the one that is in charge of the river around the Dipe area, that some of them have used them as their personal property. Meanwhile, they are supposed to be kept around the river, that anytime anybody is crossing, whether using a canoe or want to swim, will still use these life jackets.
So meaning that they use them anytime they want to cross, they use them?
Yes.
But they won't give it to any other person?
They won't give it to another person. But this time we are going to put in place some measures that these are not going to be personal life jackets, but they are going to be for the public. Anybody who is going to use them will use it and bring it back.
Then the last thing is that about the operator of the commercial boat. Where is he?
He has escaped. We have not gotten where he is now. He's a Burkinabe, but from the people at Dipe, they said with the boat they will be able to identify the person because they know who owns which boat. So with that one, they are going to be able to identify the person, and whatever the case will be, then they will bring him to the police or maybe to Ghana to see how he will be sanctioned.
Well, regional correspondent Rafik Salam joins us with the very latest from Laura. Rafik, what more can you report? We understand the bodies of the deceased have been handed over to their families for burial. What's the latest?
As now, they have now been released to the families, and as we speak now, they have been buried, and then the funerals are ongoing simultaneously in their various communities, talking about Yongmane, Cesar, Erangmo, and then also some around the East municipality around local area. So the bodies are currently, they were buried, and the funerals are ongoing. And also the Upper Australian Minister also spoke about measures that they want to put in place. They talk about the setting up of a committee, at least to look into the issue, and then also recommendations will be made, at least to have a look at what, in order to stop what will happen in future the disasters.
And thankfully, the regional minister joins us on the phone line, and let's go to him and get the very latest on the investigation that is being conducted into this exercise. We're grateful for your time, sir, on our desk. How far with the investigation into this incident? I understand we just lost the minister there. But Rafiq, so they're being buried, but do you know of the investigation that's ongoing into the incident?
They have done initial investigation on the issue, and that was what the headmaster of the school, Primus Baru, told us that were students from the cadet corps, numbering about 16, who had their usual routine weekend, jogging, and after that they decided to go for a boat ride, probably to Burkina Faso. The Bipe Bridge or the Bipe River. It's a tributary. It's one of the tributaries of the Blackwater.
Right.
If you look at Upper West region from Kokolubu around the Nanda municipality up to about New Longoro, we've gotten about 183 communities that are lying on that stretch. And so, what usually happens is that people normally cross from one end to the other. So, from the lower side, then you can get into Burkina Faso, but when you go to the Solotuna Kalaba area, then you can get to Ivory Coast.
Rafiq, so we have the regional minister. Let's quickly go to him before we lose him again. We're grateful for your time, sir. We want to understand at which point is the investigation, at least, was getting to the riverside, boarding a canoe, part of the plan for the kids jogging as part of the cadet corps exercises? Mr.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Hello.
I didn't.
Yes, I was trying to understand the state in which, or the state at which investigations have gotten to. What more are you learning on this very incident? Looks like the lines are unstable there with the regional minister. If you could listen to me through the phone, that will be helpful, Mr. Minister. We're trying to find out the state at which the investigations are. What more can you tell us, or what more are you learning as regional minister? So as we try to get back the regional minister on this very, very tragic incident in Lora, he once imagined a peaceful retirement after over 40 years of hard work around the Akosombo Dam. More will be coming on this particular story, but let's move on to the marine engineer who lost his investment to the Akosombo floods. Let's get more on in this report by our regional correspondent.
Calm and respect.
Godson Hlonji poured his life savings, close to 1.8 million Ghana cedis, into building thriving snail and aquaculture farms along 2 different locations by the river. Just as the business began to flourish, tragedy came in form of floods caused by the Akosombo Dam spillage between October 10 and 15, 2023. In a matter of days, years of planning and hard work were washed away, leaving him devastated.
This is my first fish pond, measuring 35 feet by 75 feet by 5 feet deep. And it contains 10,000 catfishes. And this is the first place. This is the first pond. We are yet to go to the second pond. And this is my snail pens. I lost almost about 1.5 to 1.8 million Ghana cedis.
Godson Hlonji is among the many victims who lost everything to the flooding. Despite this heavy blow, he has refused to give up entirely. With support from an NGO, he gathered enough resources to start over, switching to okra farming on a 5-acre plot of land.
Even this, it was some NGO who came to Togbe Makralo, the house, and they gave me 4 bottles of okra. Before I was able to plant, they gave me 1 cutlass, 1 hoe with 100 Ghana cedis. Is the one that I struggle with it.
However, the challenges keep mounting. After installing irrigation systems to sustain his crops, the region was hit by a drought. Without sufficient funds to power the machines needed to water his crops, his new farm is withering right before his eyes.
Now I'm staying like a cripple. No money. Not that I'm having pumping machines, 3 or 4 in my room right now. But no money to buy fuel, to power the machine, to pump water for this my farm.
Many others, like Godson, are grappling with this harsh reality. The chief of Bakpa, Togbe Sakwiti, and his business partners also lost their investment to the same floods.
For myself, I have invested more than 60,000 into it, and unfortunately, they are about to be harvested when the thing happened. So it wasn't good at all. And the joint one, we have invested a lot of money. If not because of the time, I should have taken you where the cages were at this particular.
Now find themselves with nothing. Sadly, many of these victims are yet to receive compensation for their losses, despite their desperate plea to the government and the Volta River Authority. For now, Godson and others like him continue to wait, hoping that help will come soon so they can begin rebuilding their lives and businesses. From Mepe in the North Town District, my name is Fred Kwame Asari for Joy News.
Well, right about now, we head to Parliament, where the vetting of Supreme Court justices is taking place. And joining me on the line is James Aveji. James, what more can you report? But before we get to James, though, the minority addressed the media on some issues that they had. Let's get to the minority leader, Alexander Fenyumaki.
I've been in my office since 8:30. Waiting for us to convene and vet. We are going to cooperate. We've always been a cooperative minority. We've always raised issues where necessary. We've boycotted proceedings where necessary, all within the ambit of parliamentary practice. So I'm here. I've given you the details of what will be happening. I have no instructions from the leadership of the caucus that we are going to boycott or do anything untoward. We respect the justices. We practice before them. I have, and I respect all of them. And I believe it's a procedure that must be followed constitutionally. That's why we are sitting today.
I want to know, you, the minority, have a view towards the number of judges that have been nominated. With regards to the view of the then opposition party to the fact that President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo at the time was packing the court. Now they have 7 nominations. You have some objection to that at the beginning. Do you still have that objection going into the vetting?
Did you say we had an objection to?
You have some reservations about the number of the 7 judges he's nominating.
Well, in this world, you must watch what you say. At the time that 3 or 4 justices were nominated, if you go and read the Hansard, comments by some ministers of state now, some members of the NDC party, just opposing that with the nomination of 7 justices, you ask yourself questions. But there will always be reasons for nomination. Some will be due to retirement, some will be due to vacancies as a result of ABCD per the Constitution. So our position is that we don't politicize nominations. You talk about the necessity of nominations when there are vacancies, God forbid, when there is death, and when there is resignation. Yes, because I've always asked this question on the committee about the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. It's not only on the interpretation of the Constitution. There are about 7 or so jurisdictions that they encounter every day. Given the number, can 13 or 14 of them handle it? Especially when interlocutory appeals, appellate